Welcome to the Neural Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm Paul Ryan, and today I want to talk to you about 4 things you have got to stop doing if you want to be happy. Now, I know on my podcast all about all the things you need to do, the new habits, the new things you need to learn. But today I want to talk about the things you've got to stop doing, the things you've got to get out of your way so you can actually make some real progress in your life. And the first thing you've got to do is you've got to stop worrying about what other people think of you. Now, I see this so much with people. They think about, they talk about, and they worry about what everyone else is thinking of them. And it's really absolutely pointless. It's a waste of time. Look, you have one job and one job only. And that job is to figure out what is the great life you can live and to go and live that life. You've got to stop worrying about what anyone else is doing and what anyone else is thinking. It's just none of your business. Get focused on creating the life you want to live and get thinking about how can you create that life? How can you live that life? Now, I'm not saying you're not nice, you're not caring, you're not giving and generous to other people. Of course, all of those things. But don't try and get inside their heads. Don't try and think about what they're thinking about you, because that is just madness. If you just pause for a moment, you will realize there's a lot of crazy shit going on in your own head. You do not want to get involved in the crazy shit that's going on in someone else's head. So the first rule of happiness is to get on with your own life and stop thinking about what other people are thinking and stop worrying about what other people are thinking of you. So I know that sounds like easier said than done. But when I was in India many years ago, a monk said to me, awareness is the enemy of habit. And what he was teaching me was that we all have these habits that we are unaware of. And when we're unaware of them, we can do nothing about them. But once we become aware of the habit, then that's the trigger point to changing it. So the purpose of this podcast is for you to become aware that you have this habit, for you to become aware that that's something, it's a thought pattern in your life, it's a habit and it's destructive, it's harming you, it is not helpful. It's you focusing on what other people are thinking instead of focusing about creating a great life for yourself. So the first step is just to become aware of that, to go, why would you do that? There's no sensible reason to be getting inside other people's heads, to be stressing and worrying about what they're thinking about you. All that makes sense is to focus on creating the life you want to live. So the next time it happens, and it will happen again because it's a pattern, habit in your brain that you're thinking slips into, oh, I wonder what Mary's thinking about me. I wonder what John is thinking about me. And your mind slips into that. So once you do that, you take it from being a subconscious pattern to something you become aware of. And once you see it, once you become aware of it, now you have the opportunity to change it and you have the opportunity to redirect your thinking. But it's a neural pathway. It's a habit. It's something you've been doing habitually, which means it won't necessarily change easily. You've got to focus on and create a new habit. So the next time you have that awareness, you see your mind is thinking, your mind is slipping into thinking about what someone else is thinking of you. You recognize it first and you go, aha, that's pointless. I'm not continuing that anymore. And then you got to break the pattern, you got to break the habit. The one great way of breaking any pattern is just movement. You might want to get up from your desk or whatever you're doing. Move, do something to shake things up so that your brain gets moving and that pattern is just shaken up. So once you've gotten up and moved and you've shaken things up a bit, choose to bring your attention to something that you want to think about. Could be a project, could be an opportunity, could be something you want to build, create, could be a great problem you want to solve. Consciously take your attention from that worry about what other people are thinking to focusing on what you want to create. And so that's a conscious choice. My attention, my energy is here. I'm taking it and I'm putting it over here. And you do that consciously. And the first time it will feel clunky. It will feel awkward. It will feel difficult because you're walking a new pathway, because you're creating a different habit. But of course, if you practice, you continually do that. You watch yourself, you decide to change it, to move, and you bring your focus elsewhere. Once you continually do that over and over and over and over again, and you repeat that practice, you will form a new habit and you will slip out of the habit of thinking of what others think of you, because the number one thing you have got to stop if you want to be happy. So the second thing you have to stop doing if you want to be happy is you've got to stop focusing on all the things you don't want in your life. Now, firstly, we know that most people's lives are filled with stuff they don't want. And very few people seem to have created the life they actually want to live. And why is that? Well, my belief is very simply because people spend most of the time focused on what's wrong. They spend most of the time focused on what they don't want. And then they wonder why they don't have what they do want. Everything created from focused energy. Every single thing in your life has come because you focused on it and because you put energy into it. When you were lying in bed this morning and you decided you want to get up, you had to focus your mind on getting out of bed and create movement and get out of bed. If you hadn't brought any attention to the fact you wanted to get out of bed and you hadn't brought any energy to the fact you want to get out of bed, you would still be lying in your fat ass in bed. Unless you bring energy and focus, nothing happens. Every single thing you've created in your life is because you've focused on it and you've brought your attention and energy to it. And you've heard me say many, many times before, where focus goes, energy flows. So if you're focused on all the things you don't want in your life, that's where your energy is going. And surprise, surprise, you end up getting a life that's filled with all the things you don't want. But this seems to be an alien concept for people. As we fill ourselves with news and information and thoughts and conversation and gossip, we fill our mind and our lives with stuff we don't want. And you've got to stop that. Decide what the life is you want to live and focus your attention on that. Stop giving your energy and your attention to stuff you do not want to happen. Number 3 is in a very similar vein. You got to stop negative self-talk and self-criticism. Now, I recommend you shoot back to episode number 35. It's called Tame the Inner Critic. And we did a whole episode on how you can tame that inner critic. But most people seem to go around with this inner critic that's continually bitching, continually giving out, continually complaining to them. I'm sure you recognize it. So let's say you hired me today. And my job was to walk around with you all day long, from the moment you got up to the moment you went to bed. Just one day. But I spent that whole day giving out to you, complaining about every single thing you did, criticizing everything you did, every move you make, every thought you had, everything you said, continually telling you just weren't good enough, you weren't loved enough, just continually putting you down. What would you do at the end of the day? You'd fire me because I would have depressed you, I would have demoralized you. But so many people have that inner critic walking around with them all day long, and that inner critic inside. Now, this is not positive thinking versus negative thinking. This is the reality that in all of our lives, there's so many things we can find fault with, but there's also so many things that we can be joyful about, that we can be appreciative of, that we can be happy about. We've so many talents and abilities and skills that we can be grateful that we have. But we tend not to live our lives immersed in gratitude. We tend to live our lives immersed in criticism. So it's not about positive versus negative. It's about, where am I putting my attention? Am I putting my attention on criticizing myself, or am I putting my attention on supporting myself, on giving myself encouragement, on telling myself the truth about all the positive attributes I have? So if you want to be happy, you've got to stop that voice going around in your head, bitching at you, complaining and criticizing about you all day long. And you've got to shift your attention. Again, it's developing that habit of being aware of where your mind is going and making a conscious effort to change it. And being aware, if your mind is paying attention to that inner critic, recognize it, call it out for what it is, and focus your mind on the side of your life where you can recognize all the strengths you have, all the positive things in your life, and be grateful for all the things in your life. Because if you allow that inner critic to walk around in your mind all day, it will destroy you. And the 4th thing I see so much of, and you really have to stop if you want to be happy, is you have to stop people pleasing. Now, I don't mean you have to stop being nice to people. I don't mean you have to stop being kind to people, but you have to stop trying to please people. And I know so many people who are people pleasing, and they put themselves down. They put their life and their needs and their wants down so they can supposedly take care of other people who normally do not appreciate and do not value. But they're doing it out of a sense of lack of self-worth. They're doing it out of need to be approved of. So you got to learn to say no and stop pleasing other people. As I've already said, you have one job in this life. That job is to figure out how you can live the best life and go and live that. Some people will like that. Some people will like what you're doing, and some people will not. That's just life. That's just the way it is. You've got to stop trying to please people and trying to live a life that's there to please other people, because that will not work for you. And in my last podcast, I spoke about the number one regret of the dying, and the number one regret of the dying, people close to the end of their lives, is that they didn't live a life that was true to themselves. They lived a life based on the expectations of others. And when you become a people pleaser, when you spend your life in that mindset, you're ignoring what your wants and you're focusing on what other people want. And that's how 90% of people will end up on their deathbed wishing they'd lived a life true to themselves. So if you want to live a life true to yourself and you want to be happy, you've got to stop being a people pleaser. Learn to say no to everything everyone else wants and start saying yes to what you want. So there you go. 4 simple things you have just got to stop if you want to be happy. They're simple, but they're practices, they're habits, and you've got to take them into your life, and you've got to make an effort to make sure that you change and you create new habits and you start living the way you want to live, living in a way that serves you. And that's how you become happier. Thank you for listening. This is the Inner Entrepreneur Podcast. My name is Paul Ryan, and if you liked the episode, please do like, share, subscribe, comment. It all helps Joe. Thank you. Until next time, take care.